Hello, my name is Kylie Roberson, and this is my presentation on differentiated instruction. First of all, what is differentiated instruction? First, to differentiate means to make something different by altering or modifying it, so teachers do the following. They identify student learning styles. Every student has an individual learning style. Chances are that not all of your students grasp a subject in the same way or share the same level of ability. According to Kathy Wesselby from Concordia University, Portland, this is a better way to deliver your lessons to reach everyone in your class. Differentiated instruction asks teachers to know their students well so they can improve or provide each with experiences and tasks that will improve on learning. Laura Ra from Scholastic Teachers states that you must observe and use information to plan instruction. This way you can understand the difference and similarities among students to obtain this. Next, you must adjust curriculum and instruction. Teachers should do the following. To maximize the learning of all students, it promotes participation in and progress through the general curriculum. According to Ann Turnbull, differentiating learning is a logical companion to what teachers use now, which is universal design for learning. Both attempt to ensure the content or instruction reaches all students regardless of their abilities, disabilities, language, or preparations from school. Lastly, you need to use a framework of strategies. Not just one, by a variety of strategies are utilized by teachers. Teachers will alter tasks and modify how students perform these tasks. Some examples are they may use strategies such as flexible learning, instructional grouping, learning stations, and learning centers, and 2 educators in the same classroom. Next, how do teachers differentiate instruction? According to Wesselby, Carol Ann Tomlinson, a leader in differentiating learning, states that teachers can differentiate instruction in 4 ways. First, content, process, product, and then the learning environment. Excuse me. So first we have content. There's different levels of understanding that students come into the classroom with. Some may be familiar with the content, some unfamiliar, some may have partial mastery. To address this diversity of knowledge with your students, refer to Bloom's taxonomy. Students who are unfamiliar with a lesson could be required to complete tasks on the lower levels, remembering or understanding. Students with some mastery could be asked to apply and analyze the content. And students who have high levels of mastery could be asked to complete tasks in the areas of evaluating and creating. Examples of differentiating content activities are matching vocabulary words to definitions, read a passage of text and answer related questions, and identify an author's position and provide evidence to support this viewpoint. Next is process. According to Wesselby, each student has a preferred learning style. With successful differentiation, teachers deliver material to each style. Learning styles can be visual, auditory, kinesthetic, or through words. There are different ways of presenting information. Addressing process showcase the fact that not all students require the same amount of attention from the teacher, and students could choose if they want to work in pairs, small groups, or individually. Here are some examples of differentiating process. Use textbooks for visual and word learners. Have auditory learners listen to books. For kinesthetic learners, have them complete an interactive online assignment. Another way to differentiate learning is by looking at the end product. This is how a student demonstrates their mastery level of the content, as well as how progression can be tracked by the teacher. This can come in various forms, such as writing a book report for reading and write learners, create a graphic organizer of the story for visual learners, give an oral report for auditory learners, and build a diorama illustrating the story for kinesthetic learners. Last, we have the learning environment. According to Tomlinson, the conditions for optimal learning include both physical and psychological elements. It is key to have the following: a flexible classroom layout to incorporate various types of furniture and their arrangement to support both individual and group work. From a psychological standpoint, teachers should use classroom management techniques that support a safe and supportive learning environment. Some examples are separate students separate students into groups to discuss the assignment, allow students to read individually if they prefer this, and create quiet spaces where there are minimal distractions. So, how do teachers prepare their students and their classrooms for differentiated instruction? According to Allen, the key to prepare your classroom for differentiated instruction is explanation and communication. For example, at the beginning of the year, the teacher should set aside time to discuss the changes that will be occurring in the classroom. This will allow the students to be on the same page of understanding with their teacher as to why the changes will be beneficial and what they will look like. Here are some of the ways to prepare your students. Tell your students that everyone learns differently. Students may be working on different activities or assignments for lessons. According to Rob, some students may say that it does not seem fair that they are doing different things to help them learn. Explain to your students that fair does not mean same. Fair means that everyone gets what they need to be able to learn. Next is to explain the role of you as the teacher and that it will be different from previous classes that they have had. In regard to instruction, explain that there won't be just teacher-led activities at the front of the classroom. There will be more student-led activities in groups. This is because everyone has different learning needs, so not everyone will be working on the same activity. Tell students that you will be monitoring them throughout the year to find out how to best teach them through asking questions, observing, giving quizzes, etc. Excuse me. Be sure that you also talk about how you will be measuring student success. According to Rob, teachers need to tell students that grades do not always reflect success. They need to recognize that success is equal to working hard and growing, which leads them to reaching goals and expanding them. Let your students know that activities and projects will be assigned differently based on each lesson and how the class overall is learning. In regard to test scores, they will be used to evaluate student learning, make instructional decisions, provide feedback to the students, and document progress. As stated in the previous slide, explain to your students that the classroom has been set up to benefit their learning, such as the seating arrangement and the various types of furniture they can use if they would like to. So, what does differentiated instruction look like in the classroom? It has been discussed at length how teachers and students can differentiate learning, but what does a classroom that uses differentiated instruction also look like? According to Allen, teachers should consider having a flexible classroom in order to be able to work more effectively with different groups or individuals while creating a structured environment. In order to do so, the teachers should address the following. In the floor space, the teacher's desk should be away from the student's desk, not in a central location. Student desks should be arranged so the teacher can walk around them with ease to monitor students, create options for students who need space or want close proximity to peers. Have small group areas that have round tables rather than individual desks for collaboration opportunities. Use U-shaped tables to promote discussions. Address storage such as bookshelves, filing cabinets, shelves, and make sure these are easily accessible and do not require walking through work areas. Next, address your bulletin boards and wall space. According to Wesselby, the more sensory avenues you engage as you are introducing new material, the more likely all of your students will retain it. Some imagery may be posted for the entire year, whereas other items may change according to what is being worked on. Some examples are student assignment charts, high-quality work samples with rubrics, and procedures for different activities. So you may be asking yourself what practices in your classroom could be altered to support differentiated instruction. The following are common classroom practices that need to be addressed and readdressed and changed. The first practice is delivering instruction primarily by lecturing. According to Paula Kuth, blogger towards inclusive classrooms and communities, lecturing is one of the many aspects of classroom instruction in the differentiated classroom, not the centerpiece. In order to reach different types of learners, teachers need to carefully choose when and how to lecture techniques. So what can you do differently in regard to instruction? Use different lecture techniques such as Show and tell. An example would be a science teacher using the model of a human body to show concepts instead of just on paper. Keep your students talking. CLUE talks about a turn and talk technique where at certain intervals, have the students discuss with the partner what was just presented to them. Try note-taking alternatives such as asking students to draw what they have just heard instead of writing. And you can co-teach with the class by having different students throughout the instruction come up with the teacher and stand up to discuss a few points. Next up is grouping students at the beginning of the year based on the previous year's achievement test scores. There are several issues when grouping students based on the previous year's test scores at the very beginning of the year in regard to differentiated practice. Teachers need to factor in maturity and change that could occur in the several months between school years by looking at student personalities and behaviors. Teachers need to gather information at the beginning of their school year from their new students in order to have them learn to the best of their abilities by readdressing how they learn. So what can you do differently in regard to grouping students? Use pre-assessments as well as ongoing assessments. According to Turnbull, you must always be willing to alter some students' tasks and modify how they perform those tasks. Teachers should not only consider grouping students with like learners, but also have mixed groups of various levels of learning. This way students can learn from each other and teach others what they know. Lastly, the classroom practice of giving bonus points for the classroom participation. Grades are the main way to measure student achievement. Participating in class does not. It is not a consistent, equal opportunity, and giving points for participation can also inflate grades, which makes it not an accurate representation of student mastery. So what can you do differently in regard to bonus points? They should only be rewarded if it addresses the same content presented not at the very end of a quarter. According to Allen, if they are granted at the end of a quarter, grades will become inflated and not be an accurate reflection of mastery. For this to be a form of differentiated practice, each student needs to be given an equal opportunity for points. Asking all students to complete an extra credit assignment is a better showing of their knowledge and of content. Having bonus points on a quiz or a test is another way that bonus points can be acquired by students because they are presented during the current topic being learned. I hope you enjoyed my presentation on differentiated instruction. Please consider integrating this practice into your classroom. Thank you for your time. Also, here is a slide of references if you would like to read further from my sources. Thanks again.